in the sense that there's actually a lot going on, and it's happening probably faster than you might expect. So this is a picture of the Port of Oakland. Lots of trucks service the Port of Oakland, and actually some good applications for electric trucks there. And just as a structure of the talk, feel free to raise your hand if you have anything to ask while I'm talking. Hopefully the slides don't go too long. You never want to hear yourself speak longer than you have to. And I hope to answer any questions that you might have. That's really the goal I have tonight. So just a layout of the slides I'll show, give you just a little bit of background on the Union of Concerned Scientists, a little bit on the need for electric trucks, zero-emission trucks, the state of the technology, where we have opportunities to electrify transportation, so what types of trucks, what types of buses, and how a couple ways that you might be able to take action if you feel so inspired. And I have, I guess, pass around. This is a sign-up sheet if you want to get emails from the Union of Concerned Scientists and you aren't already. You can add your email. You don't have to add mailing address or anything like that if you choose to. So first, just about the Union of Concerned Scientists. We're a national organization, offices in California, Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, and Chicago, Illinois. And our tagline is this. I'll let you read that. Science for a healthy planet and a safer world. So another way of saying it, we like to take science off the shelf. We like to use our technical analyses to inform policy for a safer and healthier world. We started by a couple of professors and students at MIT in 1969. Our first concern was what they saw as an excess of federal research funding going towards weapons research. So this is the Vietnam War. So this is the first concern. They got a lot of prominent scientists involved in this movement to fund science for things that they thought were good, and not necessarily these weapons and destruction. This is a picture of one of our founders, Professor Kendall. He was one of the MIT professors. This is him winning the Nobel Prize in 1990 for discovering, or helping discover the makeup of atoms. So more specifically, what quarks and neutrons are made of, or what protons and neutrons are made of quarks. So a very talented scientist, physicist, that certainly helped, our name recognition getting off the ground.
Is he the one on the right?
He's the one on the left.
Okay.
Yeah. And so just a few things that we do that I won't necessarily focus on tonight. We have kind of 5 areas at UCS. One is defending the integrity of science, which has been especially important the last year. This is just a report that my colleagues did on how the Trump administration is eliminating science advisory boards at federal agencies. Another area that we work on is still the weapons. We still do a lot of weapons research. This is a fact sheet we wrote on the button authority that the U.S. president has to launch a nuclear weapon. Very unique. No one else in the world, no other country in the world, does a single person have the authority like the U.S. And this is something we were advocating to take that authority away, even in the Obama administration before. This is a recent report on climate change. So climate energy is a big focus of our work. This particular report was on really the consequences of climate change, what we're seeing already, the inundation, the flood, and tides. And there's some interesting, or sad, maybe not interesting, consequences for even just the Bay Area in this report. So back to trucks and buses. So why do we need electric trucks and buses? This is a report that I wrote a year and a half ago detailing some of these issues. And the short of it is, even though trucks and buses make up a small fraction of vehicles on the road, they make up a large fraction of climate and air pollutants. So just some numbers. trucks and buses make up about 7% of the vehicle population, both nationally and in California, that contribute to 20% of global warming emissions. In California, they are the largest single source of smog-forming pollutants, the nitrogen oxides, the NOx pollutants you might hear about. And they, in California, emit more particulate matter, the black smog coming out of the tailpipe, than all of the state's power plants combined, just trucks and buses. So disproportionate impacts for relatively small fraction of the vehicle population.
You're talking diesel vehicles, right?
Diesel, and 99% of trucks and buses are diesel. So it's still a lot of room to change. And of course, as you can imagine, there's disproportionate impact of that pollution. So this is a video that we put together. I won't play it, but just a screenshot of it showing, this is a freeway in Los Angeles, and of course, a neighborhood right next to it. So if you live near freight sources, if you live near busy roads, you're more likely to bear the consequences of that pollution. And so these are particularly found on low-income and communities of color. That motivates a lot of our work. This is a lot going on in this graph. This is a climate change graph. This is California's total emissions from 2000 to 2014, just shows a few years. And this, I want to illustrate the goals of the state. So, this top bar is, these are total emissions. And over on the right here, I have what our state targets are. So this 2020 target, this is where we have to meet emissions by 2020. This is according to law. That's from a few years ago. This 2030 target came about from law a year ago. And then this 2050 target, this is actually from Governor Schwarzenegger. This is the 80% below 1990 levels. So just a sense of what we're up against.
What's non-combustion?
Non-combustion fuels, that's like methane leaks. Yeah, so I have this little busy graph that this is broken up between different fuel types. And this is a lot of the same information, but just for a couple of those fuel types. So these are climate emissions over time. So just to get a sense of coal, diesel, gasoline, and natural gas use in the state. For me, the surprising part of this, when I plotted this, was actually the natural gas. That it's equal, if not higher than gasoline. And I say that in part when I'm talking about trucks. There's a lot of conversations, California has some of the worst air quality in the United States, particularly South Coast, the Los Angeles area with the mountains that trap, the pollution, and the San Joaquin Valley, also the valley that traps pollution. And there's a lot of conversations around natural gas as being an alternative to diesel, particularly for air quality benefits. And so it is true that natural gas is cleaner than diesel, but I think just looking at this to me is a lot of evidence why going down the natural gas path only solves part of the problem and not all of it.
Is the natural gas on there a result of non-vehicle?
Almost exclusively.
Yeah, because your heater in your house, your stoves,
yeah,
etc., and all the other.
And so I can give just a little details on where the natural gas is used. It's split pretty evenly between the power sector, the industrial sector. So the industrial sector is everything from natural gas used in the San Joaquin Valley to pump oil is a big use. Cement making, food processing, glass manufacturing, pulp and paper. And then the third big segment is the building sector, homes and buildings.
And you get a similar BTUs from gas, natural gas, gasoline? Is it really any better?
If you were to use it in a vehicle, you mean?
And BTU, basically, BTU using to get out of it.
Energy content, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. Yeah.
There's no percent better.
Yeah.
Where are the coal burning plants in California?
They're out of state.
Where?
They're all out of state.
They're importing electricity.
What?
It's electricity we import that's generated from coal.
So,
Oh, so we don't have a coal burning
None.
plant?
Not anymore.
Why is it in California?
the state inventory still includes these outside sources. So there's,
We're buying electricity.
So the CO2 is going somewhere else, not in California.
exactly.
It's going everywhere.
There's also coal like the cement factory in Cupertino Hills uses coal to process their stuff that they get, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's other ways that coal is used, not just for power.
Yeah, good point.
Realize that this does not take into account that gasoline and natural gas are used in much greater quantity.
It does, it just accounts, yeah, but it just counts for the CO2. Doesn't matter how it's used, just how much CO2 is generated.
So we could spend a lot. There's a lot of interesting things in those numbers to me, even. So status technology. Where are we at with electric trucks and buses? So this is an electric bus operated by Foothill Transit in the San Gabriel Valley, Pomona, Pasadena area, Southern California. Any guesses on the range of this bus?
Say 100 miles.
100 miles?
50.
250. This is a bus in service 250 miles. Proterra is the manufacturer. Proterra headquartered in Burlingame. They have manufacturing, they do battery manufacturing in Burlingame and bus manufacturing in City of Industry in the Los Angeles industrial area.
How expensive is this bus?
I'll talk about that.
Okay.
So range is always a big question. And if the 100 miles, that was true 3 years ago. Maybe a little more, but that was the right answer a couple years ago. So the technology's really improved.
I don't have a good sense of what a daily route of a bus like that would be. Can it get through a day before it needs to be charged?
Great question. Yeah, most buses, the average bus is 150 miles or less. There's some super routes that might need more. But for the average bus, 200 miles is a good number.
Are these electric motors in the wheels, or do you have a separate one that drives crankshaft?
I don't know how these vehicles are set up, actually.
They're what?
I don't know that answer.
I can tell you looking at them, there's no motors in those vehicles.
It's not like, like the Tesla truck each has
Boy,
a
that
motor
has to be
on
a
it.
big electric motor. You must have a couple hundred horsepower.
They do. Horsepower on a truck, not a bus.
Yeah.
More than 400 horsepower.
Well, then where's the battery? You must have about 5 tons of battery.
Not quite 5 tons, but a lot.
Yeah.
But they're road suited. They pass the weight test, fully loaded, and all that. But these are good questions.
Yeah.
Here's a whole lineup of electric trucks and buses. Different stages of development. Pilot projects still. Some are actually on the road. And I'll flash up just the range of all of these vehicles. And maybe starting in the corner, this truck up here, this is made by the company BYD. They're actually the biggest electric vehicle maker in the world. They're like the biggest company you've never heard of in vehicles. Mostly sells in China. They've sold more electric cars than Tesla and Chevy combined. They make trucks and buses, and they're starting to sell the trucks and buses in the United States with manufacturing outside of Los Angeles.
We're not talking about self-driving.
We're not, just electric.
So you have a drive.
Yep. This is a Proterra bus that fully loaded as much batteries as you can get on, has a rating of 400 miles or more. Most transit agencies probably don't buy that, more miles than you need. This is a truck made by Cummins. Anybody heard? You follow? Yeah, you know it's a diesel company. So it says a lot when a diesel company is starting to sell an electric truck. This will be on production 2019. This is Toyota's fuel cell truck. It's operating in the pilot phase right now at the Port of Los Angeles, doing like 50-mile delivery routes from the port to warehouses.
Hydrogen fuel cell?
Hydrogen fuel cell. This is a linen delivery truck made by a company, Motive Power Systems, also in the Bay Area. They're in, where's Motive? South Bay-ish. Great company, work with them a lot. This is Tesla's truck. I've got to go down to the unveiling of it in November down in Los Angeles. Advertised range of 500 miles fully loaded at 60 miles an hour on highway speeds, so less miles under certain conditions. They're starting to operate it running from the Gigafactory in Nevada to the Fremont factory to deliver batteries. That's actually the reason they started making this truck. Was they wanted for their own business at first, and they realized a lot of people might want to buy it too. This bus down here, 100-mile range, which is more than enough for a school bus. School buses are interesting. They don't drive that much, and electric vehicles, there's a lot of cost savings you get by over diesel and natural gas on the fuel side of things. So the more you drive, actually, the more savings you get. So the economics are a little different for school buses, which actually don't drive that much. There's a longer payback period. Garbage trucks, another great example. Garbage trucks are probably the most inefficient drive cycle of any heavy-duty truck. They're starting and stopping so much. Garbage trucks will have 2 or 3 miles per gallon efficiency, maybe less than 2 sometimes, so much starting and stopping. And so
How long does it take to recharge the battery down here? Over to be substantial.
overnight, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you need to be running your vehicle 24/7, you might need to think about a fast charging setup where you different battery chemistry, and those types of systems are available. But as the battery technology is improved, it's going away from the fast charge to the overnight charge because electricity is cheaper.
I think most automobiles use lithium-ion batteries. Do you know what the typical chemistry is?
The typical chemistry is the manganese, nickel, cobalt, lithium ion.
Okay.
So trying kind of the standard lithium ion. BYD, they're a little unique. They use a lithium phosphate battery, so no cobalt. And maybe you've heard issues with cobalt mining in Congo and whatnot. So that's maybe a more sustainable.
It's really expensive.
Not necessarily more expensive. No. Just a different chemistry. So BYD's an interesting company. They started off as a cell phone maker. They were the people behind the scenes that made the Nokia flip phone, and so they got into batteries early on and have part of their expertise into vehicle technology. And then down here, this bottom, this is a delivery van. This is a new company called Change that is actually growing pretty quickly. They have an order for 2,000 trucks from Ryder. Ryder's a big truck company. They've ordered 2,000 of these. So across the board, pretty neat time for electric trucks and buses. And so just as an example of some of the technology, this is an electric bus made by BYD that I got a ride. We were down in Santa Monica. We had some UCS folks down there for an event, and we took a tour of BYD's factory, 75 miles away in Lancaster. So here's the factory where the buses are made. So this is the route we took. So we went, through that, lovely Los Angeles traffic, up Highway 14, which has a pretty good grade, and 75 miles later, arrived at BYD's factory. So this bus started at BYD's factory that morning, drove to Santa Monica to pick us up, took us to the factory, and then drove us back to Santa Monica. So the bus charged while we were on the tour of the factory for about 4 hours. And so it was fully charged when it started, charged during the tour. But all said, it did 300 miles in a day of, LA traffic on the freeway, start and stop, and going up a decent grade on Highway 14. So pretty impressive.
Are any of these vehicles using supercapacitors to do regenerative braking?
They're not. They all have regenerative braking, but not necessarily supercapacitors. And so here's a video I took while we were on the bus, just to show, it passing a diesel truck going up this grade. That's a question we get a lot, is just the state of the technology is, can it compete just on a performance basis with, combustion vehicles? And the answer is absolutely. BYD, this truck up here, they've used it for beverage delivery and some trial testing. And the driver that was, I think it was soda, I think it was Pepsi, was testing it. Drove the truck, opened up his load, the back, and all the bottles